Open sesame!
Commander Klingon vessel. We are energizing transporter beam. Now.
One, engage!
Welcome everyone to Star Trek from the Holodeck, the Discovery Edition. I am the captain, Michael, hello, and my first officer who will definitely lose the ship to the Emerald Chain, believe me, he's not very skilled, is David. Hello, David.
Yeah, I have to say that I'm going to be honest, the Emerald Chain would take over the ship. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, you know what?
They just have to load us up with tribbles, and I'd probably panic.
Well, listen, you know what? To be fair, I would probably willingly give up the ship if Asira assumed command. I'd be like, okay, what's up?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, hi, Asira. What's going on?
Don't feed me to a worm.
Or do. All right, so we are here today, Dave, to discuss the season finale of the third season of Discovery. That's right, we are here, Dave. We made it to the end of season 3. For the most part, it was a strong season. There was a bit of a dip in quality of writing toward the end, but overall, I feel like this season is a win for the producers of Discovery and definitely something to be proud of. Michelle Paradise most definitely should be proud.
Yes, absolutely. I think let's say what it is. I mean, season 3 is Discovery's full breakout. I mean, it's in season 1 and season 2, it had to live within the shadow of a lot of the TNG history.
As Star Trek, right?
As Star Trek. Mm-hmm. But here, this season, me and you have been saying that this is their chance to be a breakout series, be their own Star Trek series.
Pave their own path.
Pave their own path.
And I feel like for the most part, they did. Don't squander the time travel element. You leaped 900 and some years in the future, and that's something we had said, don't squander. If you're going to go the distance and you're going to take us to a time in Star Trek that we've never seen before, don't squander it, make sure it counts. And I would definitely say for the most part, they didn't squander it. They made it work. We find ourselves in a strange new land, essentially, of all types of with all types of possibilities. So overall, I would definitely call this season a win, but that doesn't mean there weren't some bumps that almost took us right off the cliff, Dave, towards the end, that last bit. So what does this season amount to? Well, Dave, in retrospect, it was all about putting Burnham in the captain's chair. If you had to pinpoint one thing that this season was trying to do, if you go back and watch every episode, you will see it. It's all about putting Burnham in that captain's seat. We both had said that at some point she should be.
Yes.
None of us had problems with her being a captain. And ultimately, Dave, it would fix some of the issues we have within the writing when having a lead who's not in command and yet you still need them to look like they are instrumental in saving the day. There are issues that arise because you're not dealing with the captain. You're dealing with the subordinate, someone that needs to follow the rules, someone that needs to get permission to do things. And that does hinder a lead character when you're dealing with something like Starfleet. Anything where there's rank and you have a character that's a subordinate that's not the lead man in charge or lead person in charge, you're going to have to make sure you write that into the narrative. And unfortunately, over the last 2 seasons, we don't really get that. So far, because... Okay, so let me backtrack just a bit, because I want to make sure I get my point across, Dave.
Okay.
Because this instrumental... Let me backtrack. I'm completely losing my train of thought here. What was I talking about, Dave? Prank caller. I need some more Rattagino. Is that what it's called? Rattagino.
Rattagino.
What I call it, Rattagino?
Yeah, Rattagino.
It's a new blend. It's made out of rat balls. All right, so talking about Burnham and putting her in that captain seat, it has been a problem and definitely a source of conversation since day one when we started doing this show. Because I did like the idea of there being a lead in a show that's not a captain. I thought it would be interesting. But it does create issues. And we've seen them throughout the last 3 seasons. Because of this experimental idea of having Burnham just be an officer, it's paved the road for mutiny.
Yes.
Then she was paired with a villain who was masquerading as a captain, Lorca. Then Pike, who worked well with Burnham because he was a captain who was walking on eggshells because of his own insecurities pertaining to the Klingon War and being empathetic and understanding how a crew may feel when a complete stranger comes in and assumes command, and it worked. So they always found ways to make Burnham be the lead and not be the captain.
Yes.
And yet make captain decisions and save the day. This season, Burnham had some soul searching early on. Eventually, Saru became emotionally compromised, and then by the end, he chooses to leave command to spend time on Kaminar. And more on this later. So those are the scenarios they've created over the last 3 seasons, Dave.
Yeah.
To make, or I should say, to justify Burnham making the big calls and saving the day.
Yeah.
We can't keep creating scenarios that allow Burnham to essentially lead before it begins to feel a little contrived. And making her a captain will essentially fix this, and we can just move forward.
Yeah, because like the problem is the types of stories that you can tell with a person who's basically a subordinate is limited. It's very limited, especially when you're dealing with Star Trek. I mean, it worked. I agree with you. It worked in season 1 and season 2 because in season 1 you had this growth of Burnham, starting her being the first mutineer.
Right.
And then in season 2, it wasn't about rank and file. In season 2, it was a personal story between Burnham and Spock, brother and sister.
Right.
And that's what made it work in season 2. In season 3, however, now you're dealing with the reestablishment of the Federation. And then all of a sudden, that's when that one problem arises, is how can we take Burnham seriously if she's supposed to lead us into a new era of Federation when she's not even supposed to be the leader or be the captain at this point?
Right. And if they didn't make her a captain this year and they made scenarios like they have been, it would have started. In fact, it did. Towards the last 3 episodes, it all became a little transparent that everything's been about Burnham becoming captain. Yeah. And they can't do it again. They just can't do these scenarios anymore. Just make her a captain, and we will no longer have to play clever games where, hey, Burnham will call the shots and be the hero and save the day if we do this. Now we can move forward and just say, hey, Burnham's the captain, and she's now going to call the shots. Because, Dave, I don't have a lot of problems with Discovery, but when you look at those types of things, they do become a little transparent.
Yes.
And if you go back to our first season discussions, second season discussions, we've always had problems with Burnham doing certain things when she shouldn't really be, doing those things. It's just issues of, not issues of character, just issues within, because we all have watched Star Trek for countless years. We know the way of Starfleet and how it operates and how it works and how an officer should behave. So her path toward captain this season works for me overall. Yeah. As I said, there are some issues with her ignoring the Admiral and Saru and putting her crew at risk that makes her arc toward captain a little off kilter a bit.
Yeah.
If they would have removed that, it would have felt a little smoother. If they would have removed her direct insubordination, I would have felt a little more comfortable with her being captain at the end, because there wasn't enough episodes to show us that she actually learned from her mistake. And
that's the thing, is that just is the one thing that leads to a lot of the issues that I have with Burnham in this season is, while I really like Burnham in this season, especially in the very beginning when we finally get to see some, I don't know, personality from her.
Yeah.
And we actually get to see Burnham, the person, where she's really caring about her crew. She's starting to think for herself. She's not thinking about like what others are telling her to do. She was doing what she wants to do. Fantastic. But then when you start seeing that starting to clash, that insubordination, then it leads into questions of why is she the captain then? Why does she get that chance to be a captain if you see this insubordinate type of behavior?
Well, Dave, we almost don't even need it.
Yeah.
Why did we have that moment where she broke protocol to go save Book? We didn't need it. Imagine if we already had, let's say they did that because they wanted an excuse to make Saru captain and for her not to even be in charge, right?
Yeah.
Well, it was already built in. You did it within the second episode. By having that year go by, Burnham's wants, desires changed.
Yes.
And she could have easily said, I don't even want to be in command. I don't want to be a part of the command crew. I don't want to be a part of the bridge crew. I just want to figure myself out. That would have put her in the exact same position that we find her in throughout the entire season, and we never needed that moment that felt like the same old Burnham again.
Exactly.
Breaking the rules. Now, if they weren't going to make her captain, and it was about making Saru captain, then I would say, okay, fine, do it. But if the goal was to make her captain, I felt like that transition would have been a little more sincere and smoother if we just would have removed that last bit of Burnham being Burnham.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it makes me feel a bit uncomfortable as a critic when analyzing some of the elements they used to get Burnham to the captain's chair. I really disliked Admiral Vance's conversation with Burnham at the end of the episode.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean,
same here.
Essentially saying that he was wrong. Her way works too. It takes away from a vital piece of Burnham's characterization, and I find myself flabbergasted as a writer and someone who understands the intricacies of writing television and movies that a showrunner and a writing team would allow something like that to fly. It takes away from a vital piece of Burnham's characterization. You took away a learning moment by not making it a learning moment because she was apparently in the right.
In the right. And then that
mistakes are some of the best things a character can make if it leads to consequence, resolve, and then a change.
Yeah. And then when you do something like that.
But what did Burnham learn, Dave, when the Admiral just told her what she did was right?
Exactly. And the flip side, it damages the character that's delivering that message. And
yeah. Well, damages both. It damages both.
It damages both. But I mean, before the final episode, we're coming off of a awesome dialogue Vance had with Osira about the state of the Federation. And about him telling Osira, we made decisions that we all agree weren't the best, but we all believe that it was the best that we believe we were doing.
Wait, what?
Or basically, they made decisions.
The best decision they could make.
They could make.
Because of their circumstances?
Yeah, because of the circumstances. Yeah. And like, all of a sudden, you get to the discussion with him and Burnham. And essentially, you're just basically that discussion that he had with Osira was bullcrap.
Yeah. It's a little conflicting. There are some conflicting messages here.
And that's what happens when you actually, unfortunately, continue that one little weakness of the Burnham character, which is,
why are they afraid to just go all in?
Give her a weakness.
Yeah, make her look bad. They have done it, and they continue to do it. This season, I thought they were being relentless with her character. I'm like, shit, they're really making her, make some bad decisions. Not poor decisions, purposely to move plot forward, but character decisions that would actually make sense based on who we know she is. And sure, it gets aggravating at times, but we kind of roll our eyes and say, yeah, that's Burnham being Burnham. But then it's not about Burnham being Burnham. You're trying to say that she makes all the right decisions, even when they seem very obvious that, even when they're obviously not good decisions. But by what we get at that last moment with Vance is, you know, a Hail Mary forgiveness.
Exactly.
Thank you for confessing your sins. You are forgiven, and you've done nothing wrong. And that just diminishes everything they had done with her throughout the entire season. She needs to stand by those mistakes. That's what makes characters great. Go through any Star Trek series, and you will see that there are consequences whenever a character makes a decision, whether it be good, bad, unflattering. And that's what it seems like some of the writers are afraid to do with Burnham. They don't want to make unflattering decisions.
Yeah. I mean,
but that would make her that much better.
One of my favorite moments of this season was the moment that Burnham was demoted. Remember, in the middle of the season.
Well, and hold on one second, Dave. We'll go back to that because you're right. That's unflattering. They did do it. They were willing to do it, but then they erase it. They absolutely erase that moment, and it means suddenly that moment that is one of my favorites means nothing because what did she learn?
What she learned.
Imagine telling your kid, you know, I'm a father, and I told my kid, hey, you know, let's say 6 months prior, I told him that he should never steal things. You know, even if let's say his excuse was, well, I stole this pencil from a bully. The guy is a punk, and he's just mean to everyone, so I stole his pencil. And I said, no, you never steal. I don't care who the person is. And then 6 months later, I tell him, yeah, you know what? In retrospect, you were right. You should steal. What did he learn then?
What did he learn? Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and you could have had that same scene, Dave, and just written it slightly different, because I get what they were trying to do with Vance and Burnham. They were trying to come to some type of an agreement. You know, the opposing ideologies, essentially. You know, for example, they could have done something as simple as, we've had our differences, and you have a bit of a roguish spirit, and perhaps we need something like that.
See, that would work.
That would not undermine your command.
Yep.
It wouldn't negate her growth and her mistakes. It would strengthen her mistakes and say, hey, this person is who she is. Burnham is Burnham. It's how she is, it's how she acts. And perhaps there is a place for this type of captain in this wild, wild west that we now find ourselves in 900 years into the future.
Into the future, yeah.
Yeah, I can't take away the mistakes. You can't take away the mistakes our protagonists make.
Yeah.
You can't. That's what defines a protagonist. Those mistakes and how they deal with them. And that was probably my biggest problem with the season finale. Unfortunately. It will be interesting moving forward. I believe we are in some really great territory. The biggest problems I've had, as we've said numerous times now, this season are the transparent plot points, which started popping up 2 episodes ago.
Yes.
To place Burnham in the position to lead the crew. And now that she's captain, many of those problems will vanish.
Oh, no,
so
absolutely.
I'm hoping that it will vanish, and I'm also happy with where they left us overall.
Yeah. I mean, like, I agree with you 100%. I mean, I'm still really excited about this series. I think the series is still good. And at this point, putting her in the captain's seat now just ramps up my hype for season 4, because I'm looking at that writing room and saying, okay, no more excuses now. She's in the captain's chair. Now write her effectively as a lead character that is a flagship of your franchise.
Right.
Because there's no more excuses. She's the captain. She's the leader. So there's no more of this, story of how Burnham has to make those rebellious decisions because what she's doing is the right thing. No, that doesn't That doesn't fly anymore.
Yeah.
You can't go down that route.
Well, the pieces are set, and honestly, it's all about ingenuity at this point. How will Discovery define the Trek legacy now that they are in a position to move the world of Trek forward?
Yeah.
Season 3 was getting our feet wet 900 years into the future. We were kind of fumbling around trying to figure out the layout. Now we, for the most part, understand the layout. So Season 4, Dave, sky's the limit. I do like where they left us. I think it was a strong way to end when it comes to the bigger story of Star Trek.
Yeah.
Now, Tilly is apparently not ready for the captain seat.
Okay.
But is she ready for command? I'm sure the writers will make that a big part of her story next season because we didn't really get much resolve from the Tilly end of things.
No.
I'm sure they're going to be crafting an arc that's about gaining command experience because obviously she needs it. They can't just roll past that she lost the ship.
The ship.
Like, that's a big deal, especially when you're dealing with a show that's as serialized as Discovery. And the fact that Burnham is the captain, not Saru, not Tilly. So where do you go from there with Tilly now that she is essentially a part of the command team? I can't imagine them demoting her. She's got to be first officer.
Yeah.
So if they find a way to craft her story, you know, in parallel to Burnham and make her a true tutor of Tilly, or make Burnham Tilly's tutor, I think that would be a great way to continue her story because as of now, I would say Tilly is the most consistent character. She is a good character, well written. She always feels thought out. I'm a bit ambivalent with what they did with her during the final 2 episodes. Would it have been better if they'd mentioned her complete failure? I do believe it would have been better.
I think it would have.
It was a complete failure. So it can be stated as part of her growth as a character later. But overall, there just wasn't any resolve there.
And I think the big thing that I would like our listeners to understand is I am not looking for like consequences on Tilly. I'm not looking for
we just
her
have to deal with it.
Yeah, her to be like punished for losing the ship.
She didn't do anything wrong.
She didn't do anything
wrong. She was inexperienced, but we have to handle that. That's now a part of her characterization. We can't just roll past the fact that during her first command, she lost the fucking ship.
Yeah, and like you have no resolution of it.
How does she feel about it?
Exactly.
Where's her self-esteem? Does she still feel like she can be a captain? Are we going to see someone that possibly feels a little insecure next season?
And I understand
a little hesitant to take command. And those are things that we should definitely deal with next year.
Yes, we have to deal with next year because like I understand looking back now at the finale. Would it have been nice if Tilly was the one to regain control of the ship because she lost it? Yes, because that would be great for her story. But then when you look at what the core element of the entire season and the last 3 episodes was, which was Burnham coming full circle and taking full control as the captain of Discovery. I understand why they went with the decision that they did. I would have liked to actually have seen Tilly do it, but it's also understandable, just like what you alluded to earlier about this is about Burnham. This is about Burnham becoming more than just the lieutenant.
Now, I have no problem, Dave, with characters. In fact, I've been an advocate for this in numerous other discussions that we do when we do reviews on other TV shows. I'm all about that singular character.
Yeah.
Now you have an ensemble cast, right? Exactly. But you have that singular focus, and all the other characters, for the most part, are there just to help and aid with the story, or with the story for the main lead, right? For the focus. Yes. So I have no problem with that, and that's essentially what they did this year with Burnham. It was all about her, but they need to be a little more careful with how they craft it because
absolutely.
You can see the transparency. As I said, I want to say during our last discussion or the discussion before that, you're having characters make poor decisions that kind of contradict who they are.
Yeah.
their characterization. And when you go back, you now see why. It's about putting Burnham in the captain's seat.
Yeah.
You can do the same thing, but you have to be a little more careful with how you do it. You have to think it out a bit better because it does look transparent. And obviously I didn't watch ahead, so I didn't really know why they were doing that. But sure enough, I sensed a problem. There was a problem with what they were doing. And now that I've seen the finale, I understand
You now
why.
see it.
I'm like, well, that's why you had a problem. You were simply trying to get Burnham in the captain's seat, and that's it. And the reason why it feels so weird is because you lose track of our characters that were helping Burnham get to that captain's seat, like not having resolve on Tilly, not really having a lot of resolve on or with Saru. And this takes us to the next big thing, resolve and consequence. And correct me if I'm wrong, Dave. There wasn't a lot of consequence this season. And because of that, I don't feel like the characters were ever put in peril. Like, it seemed like they were working in that direction, but it never really happened. In past seasons, there were consequences for the actions made.
Yeah.
And perhaps because this season was trying to lean on the theme of hope and the feeling of optimism, Michelle Paradise thought that there wasn't room for true consequence. But with any great Trek season, there's always consequence. And when I say consequence, I'm not saying you did something bad and now you got to face the wrath of the gods. No, for every action, there's a reaction. And I don't know if I truly see consequence this season.
No, because like the thing is like when, even in the very end, when you remove your two lead, I think the term I keep mixing up, but as the protagonist is the villain, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So if you remove two of your protagonists without even a bat of an eye, it ruins that sense of tension and, like what you said, consequence, because the heroes have nothing to fear. There's nothing that they have to be afraid of if they really don't have to think about their actions.
And maybe it's just the lackluster villain and the lackluster reveal that is the burn. Maybe that's part of the issue that makes it feel like there's not a lot of consequence, because we're led to believe the burn is this epic thing, and it's simply a scream of a child.
Yes.
A child that destroyed the entire universe. That's
with their scream.
It feels a little ho-hum. And then you have the Emerald Chain that doesn't really feel like that big of a threat.
Uh-huh.
And suddenly we're left with a season that just kind of feels, great start. There's tons of awesome suspense and what ifs, what's behind door number 2. Who knows? Anything can fucking come from that door. But once they pulled the curtain back, you're just like, well, why were we afraid of door number 2? There was literally nothing that could have really hurt them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's the payoff. They just unfortunately fell on the two payoffs that we were all expecting were to be like this grandiose, awesome moments, with the mystery of the burn and the fight with the Emerald Chain. We all thought that was going to be like this epic moment, and instead it just was like, okay, next thing up.
Mm-hmm.
And you built it up like how they built up the Borg. The payoff to the Borg was awesome. The payoff was I am Locutus of Borg. That was the big payoff when the Borg were first introduced, right?
What if the Borg was simply just a child that cried?
Exactly. What if the Borg were just like zombies? Just make them just zombies.
Oh.
They don't talk. They don't do anything. They just basically go around and assimilate.
What if they only assimilated because a boy cried?
A boy cried.
What if the Dominion attacked Starfleet because a boy cried?
Yeah. And you see, when you say it like that, it just doesn't.
Well, I think writers need to say concepts out loud.
Exactly.
Because if someone were to pitch, hey, the burn started because a boy cried. I'm like, what the fuck? Get the hell out of my writing room. That's awful. Sometimes you need to say ideas out loud.
Say ideas out loud. And when you say it out loud, that's when you start seeing like your ideas might not be the greatest.
It's like the thoughts you think when you're having sex. You're like, oh, it sounds great in your mind, but as soon as you say it out loud, the sex just stops when she looks at you like you're an idiot. That's why guys just keep their mouth shut when they're fucking.
Or when you try to do it and then you pull a muscle.
Yeah.
You know, that's just the saddest one.
Or you act like a child and cry.
Yeah.
So stupid. So lack of resolve, getting back to that. What happened to Adira?
Oh, man.
No resolve.
No resolve.
With Adira and Gray.
And I was really disappointed in that one.
What about Detmer? There's no resolve when it comes to Detmer. She had PTSD. She was struggling. Okay. We never got a resolve to that. It's just done.
It's just done.
You don't leave things like that open-ended, ever. You never leave character defining issues. There, I finally said the word right. You never leave character defining issues open-ended like that. Now, you could carry them over. That's called characterization. But when you introduce a problem like PTSD, you've got to bring some type of resolve. Yeah. Some type of closure. There's nothing there.
They didn't even bring any characterization toward the end for Detmer. They didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, even if they wanted to carry it over to the next season, and I'm sure that they will.
Will they?
I would hope.
Wouldn't it feel a little weird?
Oh, it's going to feel weird. I know for a fact
it's going to feel weird if they try to say she's still struggling with PTSD in season 4.
Oh, I guarantee.
It's going to feel very forced.
I guarantee it's going to feel weird. But I know it's going to be... I have this really sinking suspicion that they're going to just bring it up in the next season.
Yeah.
Much like, say, for example, the one thing that me and you were talking about last episode with Stamets. So Stamets gets jettisoned out of the hull by Burnham, and it's going to be hunky-dory afterwards, right?
At least they wasn't.
Yeah.
At least it wasn't.
You get this sense, at least, that Stamets is not too pleased still with Burnham.
And I'm glad. That was actually a highlight for me. I'm like, all right, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
That makes sense, and there's a bit of closure there. You can have closure without ending. It's a storyline or a potential arc, but there is closure just simply by having Stamets not smile at Burnham, or not be very happy that she is now the captain. That was handled correctly, but the Adira and Gray thing was not handled correctly at all. We can bring you back if you bring her back. If you bring Gray, if you bring Gray back to life. Oh, man. Come on, guys. Oh, what are you, fucking Dr. Frankenstein? Let characters be dead. Gray died.
And just like what you said, Mike, just like what you said earlier, say your concept out loud. Yeah. We are going to bring Gray back to life through the memories of Adira.
Yeah, and if you do that, you actually run the risk of destroying a lot of Trill canon. And lore, because you start wondering, well, why? Why did Worf have to go through the pain of losing a wife when you can simply take the memory from another host and Frankenstein that bitch back to life? Yeah. What's the point? You have to be careful. That's really dangerous, and I'm very nervous.
Especially when you take into the concept of what was set before with Trill, with the idea of the Trill host and how it affects them. It's always been a thought that when a Trill assimilates into the host literally becomes that person. So in essence, the person before him doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
Because
they're dead, Dave.
Because they're dead.
It's memories.
And that was the thing.
Now, if it becomes something more than that, that's fine, but you still gotta be careful.
You gotta be careful.
You have to be careful because we don't want more characters coming back to life. What is Culbert gonna do? Shove her ass into the mycelial network?
Oh, don't tempt them. Do not tempt them. I know that I know that that's
David, if they
something
do that,
I
I quit. I quit life.
I quit life.
That's awful.
It is.
They can't do that. I'm wondering if coronavirus had some effect on the production because everything kind of feels a bit fizzled towards the end and things kind of fell apart. I'm wondering if, do you know if they were done shooting before COVID happened?
That one I'm not sure. No, I don't know. We'd have to do research on that one.
Because how do you have 10 solid episodes?
And then, like, after the 10th one, your two-parter, it just starts nosediving.
Yeah, I'm wondering if something happened, and that's why everything felt a little rushed, and things just dropped away.
I'm telling you that. I mean, I said it last episode that maybe that the end of the 10th parter, Terra Firma Part 2, should have been their season finale, because I thought that would have been a fine season finale. Okay, JoJo goes away.
Yeah, but you still wouldn't have resolve on things, though.
Yeah, that's the only problem. But if you think
you mean if they shifted it?
Yeah,
but it also then would have felt like a prologue or an epilogue. Like, hey, the season's over. Here's this last bit here. It would have felt a little off.
But yeah, I definitely think if we did the research, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised because a lot of television has been affected in that regard. Because it's something that I've said time and time again in a lot of discussions about shows is like, just in the last 2 years, television shows have a really strange problem of trying to end their seasons. Like, their seasons end very lackluster, very rushed, due to the COVID, due to the pandemic. But like, production halts, stuff like that happens.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised.
Or it could have been just, Shayban. He might have said he might have watched a first cut.
Said,
of
I
season
can fix
3,
this
and
for
he's
you.
all like, "Wait a second, this is really good. Like, can we change the last 3 episodes because I don't want Picard to look too bad. This is too perfect.
And that's
Let me go in and fuck it up. Maybe he guest produced for 3 episodes.
And
Is that even a thing?
This still is not as bad as
Hey
Picard.
guys, the next 3 episodes are going to be guest produced by Shayban. Yay! We're going to shove Gray inside of a golem.
Wait a minute. What if that's how they bring back Gray?
I will find Kurtzman. And I will say very unkind things.
I will do that. But what if, okay, they don't want to use the Mycelium network. Let's bring in the golem.
What if they put Gray's consciousness into Picard and he becomes 2 people?
Oh,
Awful.
God. That's so awful.
That's bad. All right, so the Saru stuff is also a little questionable.
Oh, no. It's not questionable, Mike.
Okay,
It's
I
bad.
Kind of don't buy it.
Yes.
The Sakul stuff. What's his name?
Sukal.
The Sukal?
Sukal.
The Sukal stuff, I get what they were trying to do, but I don't buy it. Why would Saru, who gave his culture and family up twice to be a part of Starfleet and be with Burnham in the future, leaving behind everything, why would he then choose to leave behind his captain chair? Let me go back. Let me rephrase this, 'cause I'm getting frustrated here.
Yeah.
Why would Saru, who gave up his culture and his family twice to be with Burnham and to be a part of Starfleet, leave behind being a captain so that he could be with Sukal? I don't give a fuck what his name is. So he can be with Sakul on Kaminar. I hate the character, David, so I'm not going to say his name right. Fuck that guy.
No, and also the
David, why would he do all that? Why? How, when you're writing this, does this make sense?
Yeah,
David,
it doesn't.
He gave up his culture to join Starfleet, never to see his family again, and then chose to go to the future and leave behind his sister
Yes.
twice again
Again.
to be with Burnham, but now he's going to leave behind Starfleet. And the fact that he's finally a captain, which is what he always wanted to be, he's going to quit that as well so that he can be with this stupid person on Kaminar.
And also,
David, answer the question. Does it make sense?
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. The whole thing, even with Su'Kal himself, this person that basically is an adult, he's a traumatized person. Yes, he's been with holograms, Mike. Why is he basically treated like he's mentally disabled?
Make me happy. Yeah. Like why? Why does he sound like that?
Why does he sound like that?
Why does he sound like he's mentally ill?
He shouldn't
He
be.
isn't mentally ill.
Yeah.
And he's also, well, they said it last episode, well, he acts like a child. Why? He's been around holograms.
He's been around holograms all his life.
Were the holograms only children with the grade level of 5? With a 5th grade reading level and speaking level?
And then
No, David, he was around holograms. Why would he talk like that? Why does he talk like this, Saru? First off, why does he talk like he's deaf? Number one.
But he's not deaf.
Number two, why does he have any type of speech problems when he has literally been around people, essentially, holograms, his entire life? He knows how people talk, how to interact with people.
Yeah. That was my main
None
problem.
of it, dude. None of it makes the whole cool stuff, Su'Kal stuff makes sense to me.
And then in putting Saru in that storyline made none of Saru's
And listen, Dave,
choices make sense either.
Listen, Dave, people may say, well, now you guys are just being nitpicky. And listen, this is what happens when you drop the ball.
Yeah.
The floodgates are released. If you had written 3 concise episodes in a row, I wouldn't even be talking about Lou Ferrigno Su'Kal.
Exactly. It's death by 1,000 cuts.
Yes.
All those little tiny cuts, suddenly death.
None of this makes sense on Saru's characterization,
No.
but it does make sense when you are solely writing a season that propels one character forward and justifies decisions that you plan to make, like putting Burnham in the captaincy. Because that is all Saru amounted to this season.
Yeah.
A plot device to Burnham.
And you do realize, remember earlier in the season, we were wondering, we thought the moments with Saru were great when he was being disciplined by Vance because Vance was trying to teach him how to be a captain.
Right.
And it made complete sense. And we were going, that's fantastic. That shows growth in the character. And now it comes down to this where it's like, actually, we were just weakening Saru just so that we could take him out of the captain's chair and put Burnham in there.
Well, and that's why I'm hoping next season there isn't, musical chairs anymore, and Burnham stays captain. Tilly is first officer, and Saru is a captain of another ship.
No.
And do a Sulu maneuver where Sulu was still a part of the team, but he was the captain of the USS Excelsior.
No, Mike. Remember, he's back on Kaminar with Su'Kal.
Do you honestly think they're going to write him out of the show? No. They'll find a reason for him to come back, but it can't be to be a captain on Discovery.
But Mike,
at this point, it's done. That fucking ship has sailed.
He wanted to show Su'Kal the stars that shine above his planet.
Dude, I was waiting for that scene for Su'Kal to look at Saru and say, "You make me happy."
And I'm sorry.
My mama said
said
the Federation was coming for me. What the fuck happened? But that's why, ultimately, getting back on track here,
Yes.
I'm glad they got the whole captain thing, Captain Burnham, out of the way.
Yeah.
Because hopefully we're not going to have those very transparent moments in retrospect when we look back and say, oh, that's why Saru did this. Now we can just say Captain Burnham all the way.
Yes.
The turbo lift scene was pretty cool. I like that. I always had wondered. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. Have we ever? I know Discovery Season 2 showed the turbo lift a bit.
Yes.
the interworkings.
Yeah, with
but just
Spock in number 1.
But just a bit. No. I believe the first episode of season 2, when they had launched through in those little
yeah.
like
I remember that, yeah.
mini shuttles, and you saw like the interworkings of Discovery.
Yes.
Before that, we've never actually seen the interworkings, the non-livable areas of a starship, have we?
No.
So I really like that turbo lift scene, because since I was a child watching the original Star Trek with my mom, I remember thinking, how is it moving?
How's it work?
How does it work in a ship? It can't go up and down. It can't just be x-axis.
Yeah.
You're dealing with a ship. You got to be dealing with the XY axis
Yeah.
and the Z axis because you're moving all over the place. So to see that was actually fucking cool.
Yes.
I like that a lot, actually.
And
the action was on point in this episode.
Oh yeah, the action and the effects of
Once again,
this,
just killer.
just killer. I mean, I loved all the effects work that they did in this one, because they really wanted to show that Discovery was going to be the top notch when it comes to Star Trek series in regards to seeing the hardcore sci-fi elements of the series, seeing that how the tech works and everything. That has been a shining moment for the whole season. I mean, down to the point that when they started showing like parts of the engines during particularly in this season, like the nacelles and going into hardcore territory like that, Discovery has been awesome in doing that. Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
they did not fail in that. In
Not at all.
season finale. I mean, the action sequences were just freaking cool. I actually liked the fight scene between Osira and Burnham. That was actually really awesome.
It was good. Yeah. I don't have any problems ever with the visual effects, the action. It's always choreographed and camera blocked pretty damn well, so no issues there whatsoever. In fact, it's so strange knowing that the same studio and people worked on Picard, because on Picard, the visual effects were mind-blowing at times, but then there were those moments where you're like, ooh, like that's like the season finale,
Like the
where
season
you
finale.
had copy and paste Starfleet ships that looked awful.
Yeah. And here
We've never had a moment like that in Discovery, thank God.
no.
There's never been a moment where I cringe because of the visual effects.
And you could have cringed at many moments in Discovery's finale with effects, but
Yeah.
the effects that they ended up coming out with were just top notch. I mean, that moment when Burnham gets assimilated into the ship. In
Yeah,
the
that
fight,
was cool. Yeah.
fight with Osira, I was like going, you could have easily made that look terrible, but when you actually piece together that effect, oh my God, there's so much going on in that one that it's just awesome.
Okay, Dave. So during that moment, because I was so annoyed with some of the things they were doing and how I felt like they were kind of losing themselves when she had been pushed inside the machine, inside the computer, you know what I thought was going to happen?
What?
No joke. I really thought she was going to emerge. She was going to emerge now that she was merged with the Red Sphere data, and she was going to be Burnham the cyborg.
She's going to be V'ger?
I really thought, Dave, she was going to have the Red Sphere data within her mind, and she was going to be fucking super Burnham. I was like, motherfuckers!
She was going to be like V'ger? Are
Yeah.
you kidding me? Dude, what happens if they do something like that next season?
I am
Burnham-
I am Burnacutus
Bernacutus.
of the Red Sphere data.
Suddenly, everyone's wondering, why is Burnham so good at her job? Well, she was merged with the Sphere.
What are you talking about, Dave?
team.
She's always been good at her job. Fuck yeah. It's the fact that everyone else has sucked and never saw how excellent I was until the end, when
Until the
Vance
very
tells
end.
me I was right the whole time and he was wrong.
And never mind that almost everyone died. On
What
my
a
choice.
dirty dick admiral. His little penis. Everyone knows if you have a penis between your legs, you're wrong.
You're wrong. Maybe that's why they took the ganglia off of Saru.
Yeah.
You know, you couldn't have that much testosterone.
Oh, come on, Dave. All right, so final thoughts. Do you want to move us into final thoughts, Dave?
Final thoughts on this one. This is not a terrible nerd ragey finale. A lot of people I've noticed online have like unleashed nerd rage upon the finale. And
A
I don't
lot
think
of people are posting blogs
Yeah.
about the burn
Yes.
and how it should have been left a secret, which we had said that.
Yeah.
The burn should have been something that we deal with for multiple seasons. It could have been the Dominion
Yeah.
for the Discovery. It
And
could
I
have been
agree.
the Borg for, as the Borg was for the Next Generation.
And I agree. But at the end of the day, when you take a look at this, the story itself is about Burnham
Right.
becoming captain and becoming the lead of our show. That is ultimately the whole thing. The burn, the Emerald Chain stuff, that is all tools that they use to put Burnham into the spotlight and give her access into finally becoming the captain of Discovery. And would have been great if they pulled that stuff more throughout many more seasons. Absolutely. I don't like the fact that the burn is basically just a child crying. It causes the lithium to explode. Okay. But at the end of the day, the burn had to be used to put Burnham into a scenario where she was going to win out in the end and be put in the captain's chair. That means you have to use the burn to remove Saru off of the board. Much like how I've been seeing this whole season now, when I take a look back after this finale, most of the characters that basically me and you have always rallied about were taken off the board. Giorgio was a fantastic leader character. Well, take her off the board. Saru, let's weaken him after 2 seasons worth of saying, hey, let's have our first alien captain. Okay. No, we can't have that. Burnham has to take the lead. So weaken Saru. All right, take the one character that we made into the first officer, Tilly. We can't have that because Burnham's been demoted underneath Tilly, so Tilly's going to have to take a sidestep. We're going to have to take her story and kind of shuffle it off to the side so that Burnham can actually win out in the end. So I've been seeing a lot of nerd rage online about how the finale went. And I get it, but we all have to understand that
It's not just nerd rage, critics as well.
Yeah.
Like actual critics have also said something happened the last couple episodes.
Yeah. We have to take a step back and understand that we do not make those creative decisions.
And Dave,
we can only critique on what is given to us in front of us.
Exactly. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't have a problem with any of the actual decisions they made. I have issues with how they got there.
Yeah, and that's what reflects on my score is the fact that I don't like what they had to do to get from point A to point B, because I feel that the choices that they made rush the story way too fast, and it ruins the pacing and it damages characters. So that's why my score that I'm going to give right now is a 65. Because you damage...
David, you're a son of a bitch.
Well, here's the thing.
No.
You damage so many other characters in order to put Burnham in the spotlight, which I completely am okay with. I want to reiterate that. That's fine. Burnham has to be the lead.
In fact, we wanted it.
We wanted it.
Yeah.
However, in doing so, you damage the other storylines to the point where it's kind of like, okay, what's the point of Saru at this point?
Yeah.
What's the point of Tilly? I was really excited to see more about Vance. Now I'm not, because I'm like going, well, it's obviously not going to be... Vance isn't going to matter at this point. How about Osira? Well, you took her out as a villain, which I've always stated Star Trek is missing a villain character. You essentially took her out, which last episode we were comparing Osira to Dukat. That's a lot of praise there. And all of a sudden, just in one episode, you take her out of the equation because she's a danger to Burnham. So that's why my ultimate score brought it down, just because of how much they were damaging like a lot of the stories that they were putting forth throughout the season just to get to their main story, which was Burnham taking captaincy.
Yeah.
So a 65 for me for the finale. It's not the best. I even was bringing it up to you before we went on air. My final thought on it was is this better than season 1? It's not better than season 2's finale, because season 2 finale was fantastic. Season 1 finale, we know, was very divisive among fans. And I'm trying to decide, am I happier with season 1 than season 3? I have to say, I left season 1 at least happy and not frustrated,
David,
as much as I felt
Go back
frustrated.
and listen to that discussion, Dave.
Yeah.
Time
heals all new wounds.
You forgot.
I forgot.
We were frustrated because season 1 amounted to one big... I don't want to get into it, but season 1 had some big issues.
Yeah.
Not horrible, just some issues. All right, Dave. So my RMD score is 68%, and I went back and forth with my score for a lot of reasons. I want to make sure that I was not knocking points off because of season issues opposed to episode or per
issues.
episode issues. But at the end of the day, you have to, though. Because this episode, the reason why this episode was written by the showrunner, and most TV shows, the season premieres and season finales are written by the showrunner because it's an important episode. It is responsible for bringing everything together.
Yes.
It takes all those strands of narrative and brings it all down to one singular thread. And I don't think this episode did that. If you look at Burnham is the most. If you look at Burnham, let me backtrack because I'm fucking up today with my speech.
You're turning it to Sukal?
Yeah. It's okay. What was I saying, Dave? You brought up Sukal and I lost my train of thought. If you look at the season as a whole, it works until the last 3 episodes. Then you start realizing that all these great things, it was just so that you could do one thing.
Yes.
That one thing was to put Burnham in the captain's seat. And there's a lot of TV shows that write with that one goal. But it has to be done in a way that is not transparent. We can't go back and say, oh, so you did that only because that? We have to never see it. It has to be invisible. We can never see the footprints.
Yes.
And we can see, it's like it's snowing, Dave, and we see all the fucking footprints of everything. The fucking raccoon that took the trash.
Yeah.
And the fucking dog that chased after the raccoon. The neighbor's children that come play in my yard. It's just footprints everywhere. And that's ultimately the problem. And to make matters worse, we didn't even get resolve on many of our characters.
Uh-huh.
So originally I was going to give this episode an 80%. But before we started the show, I changed it to 68 because I do feel like it is responsible for the entire season. It does reflect.
Because it's the finale.
Yes, and typically I don't like rating one episode poorly because of a previous episode. But this episode is responsible for bringing all those things together, and it didn't do that. It's not that great. So I give this episode a 68%. Now I still stand by the fact that this episode, or this season 3 was very strong.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If someone were to ask me, hey, is Star Trek Discovery worth checking out? Star Trek Discovery season 3 worth checking out? I'd say yes, absolutely, check it out. You're going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
But from a critical standpoint, there are some big issues towards the last quarter. I should say they start popping up during that last quarter. And it's a little frustrating because we really had a strong season for 10 episodes. Everything just felt fucking smooth. And then it just kind of unravels. And it's a little disappointing. But overall, I still feel like the season was strong. And we were left in a position that I feel is a good place to be left at moving into the final or moving into season 4.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because at this point, it removes the crutch that me and you have been saying throughout this episode that Discovery had, which was Burnham as like a lieutenant for the entire show does not work. That does not work for a Star Trek.
It just
show.
creates too many problems.
It creates too many problems.
Yeah. All right, Dave. So this does bring us to an end. I want to thank everyone for listening. It also brings our 23 episodes in a row of Star Trek discussions to an end. We had started earlier in October?
Yep.
With Lower Decks, and it did not stop until now. We had some fun. It was fun covering 23 episodes of Trek. When's the last time we've done that in 23 episodes in a row?
23 episodes. And you got to remember, we were coming into 23 episodes burnt out because of Picard.
But even with Picard, Dave, 10 episodes there, we covered 33 episodes of Trek.
Yes.
This past year.
And
overall, I had a great time. I love Star Trek. Even when I get angry at things, I still love Star Trek.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I still say that I am more excited about Star Trek now more than ever because we have 2 competent shows that, and even though we don't know about Strange New Worlds yet, I am putting that show in a competent level because just from what we've been seeing so far and reading about Strange New Worlds, that looks amazing. I mean, I'm really excited for Anson Mount. Seeing Anson Mount and Ethan Peck again is just, I think it's going to be the Star Trek highlight within the next, I think Strange New Worlds is coming out in a year.
I'm not sure, actually.
Because
it might even come out before the end of this year.
So we're going to be getting some really great Star Trek soon again.
I think what they're going to do is they're going to try to make Strange New Worlds the flagship of the new streaming brand. If people are not aware, CBS All Access is rebranding to Paramount Plus, I believe in March. And it seems like they're trying to promote Strange New Worlds as the flagship of that streaming service. It's front and center in a lot of the marketing.
Yes.
So if they are doing that, then you got to think it's going to be premiering this year. Since Paramount Plus is dropping first quarter of the year, why would they wait a whole year before they drop Strange New Worlds? So hopefully we do get that soon. I know we're also getting Star Trek Prodigy, which if you're reading some of the blogs and the reports, it looks like it's going to end up being really well done.
Yeah.
According to numerous interviews I've been following up on with Kate Mulgrew, she had said that Star Trek Prodigy is actually really sophisticated. Yeah. And that made me happy. So we have that. We have Picard Season 2 coming up. Strange New Worlds. A lot of things happening.
Let's not think about Picard Season 2.
Well, let's go in positive. We like to always start positive, Dave.
Okay. All right. We will start positive.
All right. I want to thank everyone for listening. And also be sure to check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/RainmanDigital, and pledge $3 to $5 a month. And that actually helps us stay on the air. That's really the only way we can continue to do shows each and every single week.
Yep.
And we need your help. We compete with the big podcasts, the corporate podcasts, the celebrity podcasts, and they clog up those algorithms. So the only way we can really cut through is if people help us from the Patreon end. Patreon.com/RainmanDigital. And when you pledge $3 or $5 a month, you do gain access to a lot of additional Star Trek from the Holodeck content. We break down all types of different things. With a $3 tier, you get our pre-shows that we do before every single discussion. With the $5 tier, you gain access to every single episode we've done for Patreon. We get into discussions pertaining to the Borg, the Maquis, Section 31. We cover the Star Trek Year 5 comic book as well. So we do a lot over there. Patreon.com/RainmanDigital. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Live long and prosper.